Welcome, everyone. I am really happy to be here. This is the first podcast for Who We Once Were, Who We Can Be. I'm your host, Alexei, and I'm thrilled to have as my first guest, Randi Green. Randi Green, as we all know, has a degree as a psychotherapist and has been working as a professional psychotherapist in many different capacities and has a BA in theology from the University of Copenhagen. But far more than that, Randi Green is an educator, a pioneer, a change maker, a healer, a seer, a voice of this time with the teachings of this time. I, as your host, like all of you, am on my journey and in my process of understanding how to navigate through this time. And I've been a professional dancer and artist working here in Germany in the state theaters. And so my education has been rather through these experiences and the school of life. But I am also here to learn more. And I am just very thrilled to have Randi Green as the first guest. So Randi, welcome. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. And thank you for having me. And that was a beautiful introduction. Thank you for that. I appreciate that.
You're welcome. So I was thinking, Randi, that we would just start this, as you say, shooting from the hip. And I would just like to ask you, what is on your mind today, or what would you think would be of interest to talk about?
Well, I would actually push it right back to you and say the same thing. What do you really want to get to talk about today? Where are you today? What is on your mind today? As in, what is if I were to ask you that you had access to a lot of information from where you could continue your own evolutionary journey, then what would be the most important question for you to ask me? Or what would be the most important piece of information that you would need to have today?
Oh,
No
pressure there.
Yeah.
That's interesting. And I was thinking you might bring it back to me. Of course, it's a very personal thing. And so I'm not sure. Here we are in a podcast. And I guess I am representing other people who are in my position who are searching. So of course I would want to know maybe more about what I seem to give off as an energy, or what I am kind of giving off as a picture. I guess I would maybe want to have a mirroring back of what one would perceive of me. Maybe I would center on how does it come to that each time getting on that top of the wave of what is in the day. Each day seems to be so different, and how can I get to the essence of every moment of every day?
Well, these are good questions. And at the same time, I'm also thinking a little bit about that your listeners and the ones that have been following my work are perhaps new to this progression work in the progression sciences. Thinking about what is this, perhaps even thinking about it within the context of traditional spirituality, traditional healing work, or traditional aspects of what it means to be a human that is evolving and progressing, and what does it really mean to progress? I know in America being progressive means that you are a Democrat, right? So this is not what we're talking about. But progressing means to develop. It means to push something to the next level. It technically means to ask the right questions, to get the right answers, and then at the same time continue into asking new questions. It is a journey of challenging ourselves to constantly ask the right questions, challenging ourselves to constantly push ourselves beyond our limitations, our comfort zone as human beings, our comfort zone of I want to be this, or I want to be that, or I want to achieve this, or this is what will bring my life into a wholeness. This is what will make my life more fruitacious. This is if I just achieve this, then I'll be a better person. Or if I just achieve this, then I'll know how to work with energy. So there is this orientation of achievement, which you as a professional dancer have been working with. And I'd like to ask you, as a professional dancer, what drove you to become so skillful and do that amount of training every day? What was the underlying drive that you had?
Very interesting. Yeah. I have, okay. To be a professional dancer, you have to have something that is going to make you make that decision at a very early age. It's something that you cannot just decide when you're later. I guess everybody would know that, but to be on that level of skill, the first type of dancer I was a classical ballet dancer, and then I became a modern dancer afterwards. But I will just say very easily, just as a base program or just kind of a normal commentary, I got a chance to try a lot of different things. And it was the most attractive, of course, because in comparison to gymnastics or in comparison to swimming, which I was actually talented in, I felt that there was a completeness in the art of the classical ballet. It encompassed not only an incredible physicality, but it had the fantasy, it had the work, it had the beautiful connection to the classical music, which was based on old patterns and tradition. And so this hit me like a wall when I saw this. I didn't even see a dance performance. I just saw a classroom. I was just watching some girls being given a class, and it was so magical and so amazing that and largely because of a progression couple, I would say almost two teachers that were just complementing each other very well, a married couple. And they're on top of that, though, so I'm painting this one picture, and on the other side, I did have a crisis. This is sometimes where you really get let's say a slap in the face, or you really get that moment of realization that the situation you're in is really not suitable to you, and you want to find something else, or you need another outlet. And when the dance came, it was just no question. It was just, this is it. This is something really worth it. This has everything. This has a beginning, a middle, and an end, but the end is never ending, because dance is never ending. You are never good enough. Every little movement you do can always be better. And I think I was very attracted to that. Actually, now that I realize it, I was attracted to, you are never perfected. There's always something more.
Yeah. And that is the same way with the progression work.
Yeah.
Completely. I couldn't have said it better, because it is when professional dance, mostly in ballet, but also in modern dances, which I am not skilled in, which I have no bigger understanding of other than what I have seen. This, for me, or it's martial art, this ability to work with the physicality, to master the physicality, and be driven to master the physicality in that manner, that way, is one of the foundational levels of mastery of energy, because the body's made of energy. So to push ourselves constantly into that daily work. How many hours a day did you normally train when you were on the peak of your professional career as a dancer?
Oh, the whole day.
Exactly.
At least.
Exactly.
7 to 8 days. 7 to 8 hours. Yeah, in a day.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And when we talk about the progression work and putting it really into its highest level of performance, the performance rate of that is training 24 hours a day. It's literally all the time. It's a lifestyle. I live to do this. is not just about becoming a professional dancer or learn to move with the energies of the room, as in the hands movements where you work with the energies of the room that makes your hands unfold and slide through the air, almost following energy streams where they take on different forms, which we are also seeing in people that are doing spiritual dance or are moving in trance or in ecstasy. They follow the energy course of the room that goes in and becomes part of the physical body, becomes part of the etheric field, from where the body suddenly becomes light. It becomes lighter as well, and it can suddenly do movements which we thought were impossible.
Yeah.
Yes.
Exactly. Yeah.
Exactly. So, and that ability, not many people have that physicality that can do that and understand how energy can literally bleed through and merge with our biofield. From where the training that we are doing, which you have done as well as a professional dancer. Sorry for telling you what you've been doing, but I'm telling you how I see it as energy, because there's a point where I want to go with this. The ability to merge with, sorry about that, the ability to merge, my voice is being completely blocked here, that's interesting. The ability to merge with the energies of space, which is what the biofield can do. But the drive to get there as what we could call a compassionate dancer, you have to have your heart in it, not just your mind. You not just set your mind to this is what I want to do. You have your heart in it as well, which tells the body this is where we want to go. This is what we want to do. This is that type of energy we want to express.
Yeah. It's full, it's complete, it's committed.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And it is to commit to beauty.
Exactly. It is to create beauty. It's not for nothing. It may be just the German words just suddenly coming. I also speak two languages. It may be that it is in this next instant gone. So it's there and then it's not there, but it is creating the beauty.
Yeah.
It has a purpose. And sorry to interrupt you, but this is what I actually have understood about meditating. First, I had some feelings about the dance as, it can go in so many different directions. It can be some of the types of dance out there are not on the highest level, but there are so many instances in our lives that we are mimicking progressive patterns. Or mimicking progressive abilities and desires or even hierarchies. So we have this many times, and I realized that this was the dance as well, and it is in many different things, but of course the dance you have the absolute creational aspect. You are literally creating something out of nothing, and as you're just bringing into this conversation, which is really exciting, is this other level of energy in the aether that you're bringing in that we would never discuss, or it would never be talked about, but the audience would experience it and the dancer would experience it. Yeah. And this is the mimicking of creational processes.
Yeah.
The problem is that we see it as art, or we see it as a dance performance, and this is where I think where the detour comes in, that we don't understand that these are actually creational processes, and yet we then get it packaged into, well, but this is art. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yes. So the point of reference is off, in a way, to put it that way, and we could, because again, I'm getting all eager here as well, because if I recall some of the early fourth cycle communities we had prior to the timeline event, and for people who are thinking, what is that about? I've got 6 books out there. I got the whole academy where people can learn about these sciences. I have got the higher order Density One Work Institute, which is another website I've got going with the reconfiguration work. So there's a lot of background information people can explore and investigate themselves. There are free material, but there are also paid material. But when I remember the original 4-cycle communities before the timeline event, and that's so far back in time, it's before actually what we could call the wall in time. It's before even this reality as we know of it, before this universe even came to be, in the prior worlds that were before that, as part of the original progressive projects that we had got going here to upgrade and explore and develop the consciousness units of the holographic metaverse civilizations. I call it holographic metaverse. Of course, it was called something else because we didn't speak English. We had a completely different language that were rarely uttered. It was shown by existence. It was telepathic, it was shown in visuals, and it was shown in existence, and it was shown in complex information systems. But where I wanted to go with this, the recall I have of the early communities where we would work with what we could say the ability to transform the edge of space. In the previous universal cycle, we had wars where the way we worked with transformation of energies of space, the spatial energies, were through technology. And what we chose were to create societies or little communities where we worked with in a different way to create beauty, to create what we would call art. And my mind will quickly slide into pottery and working with the soil, which I then know it can't be because it was before the timeline event. So it's before the solidification of the energy units into molecules and atomic matter. So it was before that. But how do you create something out of space? And one of the things that we used were actually organic vessels, which at that time were not molecular, but they were what we would call density 2 vessels in a higher vibrational state. So we work with the energies of the vessels that we had made out of the reality field energies, and via our existence in these bodies and the currency, which we could call the current, that were flowing through the biofield of these vessels, and our movements and what we made with these bodies would then become the means of how we would transform the reality energies into something that could take form if we chose to do so. It could also be technology if we did choose so, or it could just be movement in space, clearing the energies by using our vessel, which at that point, of course, had arms and legs and a sort of body, but with no need for food and no need for drinking, because the reality was completely different. We absorbed energy from the environment around us. So dance, in a way, was already performed there.
Yeah. Beautiful. And that would make so much sense because you're experiencing the reality different. So you were able to move. You were actually to see a movement. Yeah. I can totally relate to that. Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah. That is what it is. And I have a feeling, I don't know if it would have been at that time, but I realized a lot of the movements I was attracted to in the modern dance were very functional in a way, almost like sign language, almost like a language. And I was thinking that maybe this is working with light, because I absolutely, and it's really funny if I look at what I was so attracted to, some of the solos that I even choreographed some stuff for myself. It's almost comical how much it is working with the hands. And when I'm doing the clearing work in the morning, doing the energetic clearing work, I'm all over with the hands because this is it. And I'm actually naturally doing this type of hand movements that would facilitate this clearing, that would facilitate also another energy being allowed to come in once one is cleared out from all different parts of the room. So this is I didn't realize where that's really coming from. I just always know that I've really loved to do that.
Yes. And remember when you, years ago, back in 2017, when you began working with some of my material, you did the the basic energy work videos where I'm still presented as a video and showing it my hands. So you what it was you said to me, that it was like the way I moved my hands were like a dancer, that I had these very soft movements with my hands as I worked with the energies and did the clearing work. Do you recall that?
Absolutely. Yeah,
Yes.
that was the first thing I saw. And I mean, not only the resonance of your voice. I mean, the first time I saw you was on YouTube, of course, and that the way you talked, it just so resonated with me. I said, this is a very special person. And then when I saw those videos, I also thought that you were just like a dancer. That this is a lot of the movements in the modern dance are made from movements like this. So, I mean, if you think of Pina Bausch, I don't know if any listeners would know that, but she's an extremely famous choreographer who's passed, but German choreographer. Many of her movements are like this, just like you. You would have been one of these Pina Bausch dancers.
Or she might have been part of my original communities as part of the fourth cycle in the ancient levels of Lemuria before the timeline event. Yeah, who knows?
She is a genius. She is one of the geniuses of our time. Her pieces are phenomenal. Yeah.
Yes. Well, unfortunately, I don't. Unfortunately, I don't know her. But to go back to the movements with the hands, when we begin to work with spatial energies, not only in our own clearing work, because the first space we begin to clear using our hands, the hands are connected to the fourth dimension, or what we call the basic vibrational level of density 2. So when we move our hands in specific directions, we know, for instance, within the Buddhist line of thoughts, we have the mudras, which are also used in the guru teachings of the Hindus, right? So we have the mudras where we understand that hands grip the energies of space. It is both where we can grasp and grip the energies of space, but it's also where we can direct the energies, the vibrational energies from our heart. So we have that movement of both being able to take and grip with the hands and pull it towards into our field from where we can there work with it. Or we can do the other way where we work from our heart, from the inner walls, the inner realms out into the outer environment, also using our hands as instead of gripping, there we make the hands flow with the energy. We make the hands point in the web of reality energies, because the holographic web behind our reality is capable of connecting to our hands. So that's why we have fingers. A student asked me years ago, would these original races have fingers? And I recall them as having fingers, but not as we have fingers, but because it was in a different type of organic matter. But these appendices that were fingers, they were made to, I remember each one of my fingers would hold a specific coding. It would hold a specific symbol at the end of each one of my fingertips. And with that, I could draw in the reality energies. I could administer the fields of reality using my hands like that.
That makes so much sense. The symbols would be then indelled or imprinted into the reality.
Yes, because I would be co-creating with reality. And at that point, whatever we would do would be for the highest good of the many, always. So what I would do would never be for selfish purposes. It would always be for the community I was part of. The idea of working with reality and reality energies were to ensure that everybody would reach the highest purity rates, the highest standards, and the highest progression rate. So I would administer the energies of the field around me so that my energy field would emit that possibility for everyone around me. And at the same time, as I was retailoring and reconfiguring my own field, that would emit or vibrate out into the surroundings and other people's spherical reality fields they had, because we both have the local reality field that's around our body and the global, which is the joint space of all that exists in that reality field. That's the original dynamics. So we're talking of something that's very, very ancient, but that's where the hand movements comes in as part of existing in a joint field, where the only tool we technically have to express our different forms of consciousness and energy would be through movement.
Interesting. And what do you think about, because when I totally see that when you're using your mind to clean the fields, because there we're having then even another level.
Yes. And in density 2, we have first the basic levels of vibration. That's where you learn to administer the physical form. Then we have in what we call the fifth dimension or the fifth cycle. That's where the radiation energies comes in, where you merge the radiation energies with the vibrational energies. And then we have the sixth dimension or the sixth cycle, where everything then becomes pure radiation. But it's a different type of radiation than the one in the fifth dimension, because the one in the fifth dimension is the beginner's radiation, where we have what we call a mental field or a perception field that expands into perceiving reality as codes. So in the vibrational area, the fourth dimension or the beginner level in the density 2, we learn to administer energies by who and what we are, by our physicality, so to speak, by our organic vessels, by the movement in space, how we connect to the reality field energies via our heart field, how we administer the energies that are flowing in and out of our joint fields and in and out of our individual fields. And once we have learned to master the whole understanding of I'm part of a unity field where everyone is interacting, everybody's affecting each other. Thereby, the goal is to progression for all involved, the optimal progression rate for all involved. Once we master that one, then we begin to have what's called the perception field activated. And we're here again talking before the timeline event, which is interesting that you and I have a conversation that brings us so far back by beginning to talk about dance. That brings us to a whole other level of reality, which is, I find it very, very interesting. And I'm actually pleased to talk about it, because then we can say, okay, what does the radiation field then does? It's the light codes, to use that language, as we have known from spiritual sciences as well. It's where reality shows the information system that is behind the energies. What's the codes behind the vibrational patterns? What's the codes behind reality as it truly is? And that is where the perception field comes in. So we stir up energy with our hands, and then we perhaps draw a specific pattern, or we begin to learn, if I do that movement in the vibrational energies, which typically are golden, if I choose to do that, then what is the code of that movement? How can I use that code as a kind of conscious imprinting on a field where I don't have to do the hand movements, but actually have now encoded it into my own field, so it becomes part of who and what I am. So as I move through space in the fifth cycle, I actually have coded my own energy system to work in a specific way. Now, not just exploring it by my movement, by changing and transforming and adapting everything to the highest progression rate, but I've now begun to code myself to be able to be that expression, to be that unfolding. So I begin to have what we could call a specific signature or identity that shows I am this, not that I am, and the I am is important, because we don't have, at that point in time, it's not the sense of self that is important, but it's the sense of our purpose and function that's important.
Yes, amazing. And there, just as you were saying that we would each have our signature. So this is the precursor then to actually getting the signature. This is then the physicality to this. And then you would have your signature, and your signature would be in harmony with the rest of the fields, because as you said, it's always for the good of the many. So not only are you working on your fields, but everybody else is working on their fields. And then when they merge as well, it is in a harmony with the individuality. And this is what I find is so essential for me anyway to understand, is the individuality yet within the harmony. Because I really don't like the idea of just becoming one with something else, but I love this idea that your field has this energetic signature, has this coding, and then it is in harmony with the rest.
Yes. Once we can kind of say it with the vibrational fields kind of being in the ocean, where we both know that the ocean it consists of drops, but it's also a huge field of all of the drops. That's technically how we could say the vibrational field works, a golden ocean. And we are all part of that ocean, and we are still working as a joint field, but still have the ability to be individual, where we in the work with the energies begin to discover, okay, as my consciousness potentials are in this universal cycle as part of vibrational field, I make the waves go in a specific way. It's like a dance when you have your signature dance, you have your signature moves as a professional dancer. You have this is unique for you as a dancer. This is what shows you as that unique dancer that moves in that direction, that makes people feel that specific way. When you dance, people feel your movements in a specific way that makes people either like a dancer or dislike a dancer, all depending on if the vibration resonates, right? And once we have discovered more and more of that in the original cycles, then that became so apparent that this was our function. This is how our consciousness potentials would express itself as part of the great vibrational fields, and that's how it would emit these specific wave patterns. From that would be our functionality. Then we begin to say, okay, how can I use that? For what purpose can I use that? And that's where the coding comes in as the next level, where we begin to individualize, so to speak, as in, I have that ability with my consciousness potentials. I can do this with my consciousness potentials. And then I get a purpose. And from that moment on, we begin to prosper as purpose and function, which gives vibrational field and our radiation field a purpose and a function that merges with our physicality into where we technically become an individual in the density 2 as part of the 4th and the 5th cycle. But we have always been what we could say sovereign, because our consciousness potential are sovereign for us. That's part of our highest level of existence. And that's always individual. And technically you can say, well, we don't need quantity of people, we need quality of people. In the original worlds, there were not that many organic vessels as there are today. There were fewer because each one represented more or less a whole lineage. We could say a whole universal lineage might be divided over 12 universes, but each lineage might only have 60 people within that lineage, within each universal structure, just to put that in. There was a humongous amount of space because we could expand our fields into cover a vast amount of space via our vibrational fields as we would flow them out through our heart field into the surrounding energies around us, and by that merge with the reality field. So there wasn't any need for that amount of bodies, to put it that way.
Yes, quality bodies as well.
Yes, exactly. So high performance rate bodies, which I think, and I would like to say that is what, when people are working and have been working as you have with your body as a professional career, as a dancer or martial art or whatever it is. But as I would actually say, the two things I could align with and say that where I find that amount of dance and amount of working with energy as part of a knowledge would be in dance and would be in martial art. If you do, for instance, functional training, I don't think many that are doing functional training or CrossFit, that they are particularly thinking about that whenever they lift a wheel or do whatever they're doing, that they're actually working with the energies of space. They are more focused on, this will give me muscle power, this will transform my body into be able to be stronger or more lean, or so the purpose is different. It's very service to self. It's about changing the physical form, whereas as a dancer, what was your goal of dance? You want to express something, right?
Yeah, exactly. And so such an interesting thing when you mentioned before the individuality within the field and the weight. And as a dancer, it's so fascinating that you get so close knit in this little cosmos that you're in, whatever company you're in. And usually the companies these days are very small. There's like maybe 10 people or 12 people in a company, you get so attuned to this extremely intimate weight of your partner, although you're just working in a professional atmosphere, that within a dance piece, if someone were to come or get injured, which is the only time you're allowed not to dance is when you get injured, painting up here, a warrior here, but that's just is how it is. As a professional, you then you don't dance, and then someone else might come in, and that other being in that movement, even if you know each other very well, it's just that in that particular movement, in that particular dance, there was a different weight. And so it is incredibly connected. And I would imagine that, this is what actually you're also often talking about, the ripple effect. The interconnectedness of everything is so physically shown to you. It's once again, it's a mirroring effect of what is actually how it actually is, but in a physical form, and it's actually your workplace, that you have to deal with on a daily basis. So that's very interesting.
Yeah, and it's exactly the same as the progression work, because in a way you would say the only time when I'm not doing progression work and I'm not in contact with other worldly realms and other worldly races, because I'm also telepathically in contact with many different species around in our reality field, that is when I'm injured. And what does it mean to be injured for me? Well, sometimes it actually means if I've encountered some really nasty entities from other levels of a reality, I can be taken out, as I call it, because they've completely wiped my energy field, and then I'm just a physical form, and I need to heal, and I need to take the time to get my energies back up and running. And until my heart field kicks back in, ignites my brain field, because these two things are connected together. It's in Buddhist teaching, it's called the heart mind, where they reignite and the golden energy flows back into my heart field from the reality field itself, from the vibrational level, and ignites my brain field to reconnect to the radiation levels from where I get the codes and information layers of reality. Then I'm technically out, and I have to clear myself and rebuild myself and reconfigure myself back into the understanding of this is how I work. This is where I get my purpose and my function back, because I remember and recall what my purpose and my function is. And that's what I constantly realign myself with when I get myself back on track, which you as a professional dancer did as well. When you got wounded or injured, well, you know why you wanted to come back in the game. Either it was because you wanted to be part of that play or that setup or that specific dance or that what you call a tour you had to go on or whatever. You knew that was the purpose, that you wanted to get back in the game. You wanted to take your role again. You want to be part of the troupe and do your part of the play or the dance setup or whatever you call it. Sorry for not having the right words there, but yes.
Yeah, if I can interject, I realized it was the energy.
Yeah.
It was the density 2 energy. That's how as an older person now, I kind of understand that because I really asked myself, what was it? Why was I so, what was it actually? And I understand there's a connection to, if my energy work is going well, it's a similar energy. And I think it must have been the density 2 energies. And it's just this energy when you are, whoever you are as a person, when suddenly in that moment of time and space, you're on that stage, the lights are on, everything is quiet, and it's your chance to express whatever that energy is that you want to express. And there is this, what do you ever want to call it, a synchronicity that happens or a zone that happens, and it is an energy that is just so special that you're willing to dedicate 30 years so that you can feel it again. And I think that, and when I'm in the density 2 energies now, if I say, because I have a lot of mistakes and a lot of things to work on, but when things are going well, I experience a similar energy. So I think it's density 2.
Yes, but I would say that density 2 was the one that used to come from our sun. That's what the Hindus call prana energy. And that's unfortunately been taken from us. So we need to find new ways to express what we call the outer domain energies and reconnect to that. And I could also play a little bit of kind of, I'm not going to say the D advocate, I'm not going to use the word, but playing the D advocate here, because I remember when I was doing lectures and I stood in front of people and I went into my space where I began to emit my heart energies, and that would amplify other people's heart energy. But what I would get back from these people that were observing me and getting the lift was actually their distortion energies, which then would completely throw me off, but it would give a sort of high. But that would just be astral energy. So, and then I would have to clear myself afterwards, where you, fortunately, you were dancing, so you would move around, which is some of, when I talk about in some of the energy work that we can do clearing work in upright, vertical meditation position where we contemplate and activate our mind field. Or we could lie down in horizontal where we can go into theta state, and by that clearing the fourth level or the astral plane and the subconscious level, our physicality, going into the emotional field, which best goes into this kind of theta state where you are regressed, so to speak, not regressed as set back genetically, but you're able to go back into your subconscious, consciously traveling, not astral plane travel, but you are able to view into the different levels of who and what you are in theta state. I prefer to call it that, which others can regress you into as where you go and see what you call it, a hypno-regresses, what do you call it, hypo-regressionist, what do you call it?
Yeah. Regressionist state.
Yeah, that can put you there as a therapist, which you can work that, or you can just work by your going back into childhood memories and then go further and further back, which is also a technique, but it works best in a relaxed theta state, not if you fall asleep, of course. But then there is the full-blown energy work where you actually are not in trance, but you are in theta state, open observances, where you are open to all of the energies that flows into your body when you do dance, where you can open up. It's kind of shuts down the thinking processes. It's all about movement and energy and perfection and feeling the body, feeling the breath, that takes you to that theta state, but now in movement, where your body then opens up to a new level. It's kind of the meridian or the nadis. They begin to process prana. They begin to process air and light together, so that the blood pumps in your body and you literally becomes this huge sphere or ball or grinder or ringer or whatever you want to call movement or spiral movements of energy, which the prana energies from the sun, that unfortunately is an artificial construction, but it was engineered to give that energy. So when we did move, when we were walking around the planet, when we were part of whatever we were doing in the old world order programs, if we were conscious about our physicality, then at least we would connect to the energies of the sun, and via that triangle between our spleen and our heart, and there was used to be a center between our shoulder blades, we would then connect to what we call that type of earth grid that were aligned with some of the original fourth dimensional grid levels that still existed inside our reality, although most of them were shut down some 6,000 years BC, but there were still remaining grids left. And these are the ones that whoever been practicing spirituality or meditation or any forms of chakra teachings or the Buddhist teachings, these are two different ways of working with the energies of the body. We could say the Buddhist works more specifically with the heart mind, activating the heart field to activate the brain field, whereas the Hindus, as far as I know and as far as I can see, have been more focused on working with the heart field and the biofield, as in getting the vibrational field up and working with the body, with either pushing the body into extremes or denying the body what it needed. As we saw with the Buddha, for instance, he worked with the gurus to begin with, and then discovered all of these ascetic ways and all of these weird body, the asanas, all of these postures and different things they were doing. It only took him so far, and then he discovered there's more to that. There is this understanding that I have to have my mind involved in this too. I have to have the understanding of what I'm doing. I have to be enlightened. I have to have the heart mind, the chitta, the higher levels of the mind incorporated into my compassion, incorporated into the way I'm working with my body. And that goes back to the progression sciences. I want to put in here, before we ask the next question, the esoteric teachings, that's the Alice A. Bailey material. They actually say that the Buddha was the one that worked with the biofield and lifted it into connecting to the mental field. And that could very well be. I'm not going to say it is or it isn't. But the way I explained it before is the way I see it when I recall some of my understandings of how the path to Buddhahood works, and how when I have looked into it, this is how I will interpret it. Be it right or be it wrong, we don't know, because unfortunately I can't communicate with Siddhartha himself because he's long gone. So yes, that would be nice though. But this is, we are all on an interpretation level here, unless we have active recall from our own experiences. So that's mostly what I draw on, because I used to and have been a Buddhist monk in Tibet, close to the Chinese border.
Right, exactly.
Yes.
Yeah, and so you would have worked with that as well. And that was interesting also what you said, that this conscious integration that was happening there, this was this higher level, that this is way beyond, and this would also then create, once again, the signature, this resonance. This would imbue the dancer, the actor, the person, the monk, the priest. This would imbue the fields even more so. So
yes,
that's beautiful. Yeah.
Yes. So there are 3 ways we can work with our physicality to get the essence of the day, as you asked the question to begin with. One is in upright meditation contemplation. Meditation is to learn to hold the still point of observance, where you observe everything there is. Learn to focus your energies. In meditation, the typical meditation practice, you get very constantly distracted, and your mind wanders off all sorts of places. So the first place to really begin to align the mental field is to learn to observe, both as the observer, but also to reach the focus where you can keep your focus on one specific object. Even if you keep going away, stray away from it, you keep your focus on that object, and eventually learn to have your mind focused without your object and go into the still point, where your mind becomes blank. It's similar to the void, but it's not the void. But you are in that very focused observance, but you are not having any mental processes at all. That's the still point. Once you have that one, then you can ignite via your very, very evolved compassionate heart, which is the first practice of, which is the lying down practice that actually clears the heart field, activates the heart field, and then you're supposed to go into meditation afterwards, interestingly enough. But the beginning of the meditation for most of us I recommend actually to do creative meditation more than going for the still point, because the still point practice and observation is after you have ignited your heart field. So let me complete that one. After you have activated your heart field, you then go into the observance, the practice of observance, and the practice of focused observance and reaching the still point, from where you can lift the energies of the heart field up to the brain field, and there ignite the golden light in the center of the head, where you ignite the inner light bulb that connects the heart and the mind into a unity with the heart mind. So what people mostly practice now in meditation is actually the step 3 of another type of practice that we need to have. So it all begins with the body. So let's do it in the right order. It begins with the body. It begins to learn to listen to our body. It begins with learning to feel our bodies. When we walk, we feel our feet. When we talk, we feel our breath. Whatever we're doing, we are actively sensing our body. As we talk here, I'm feeling my feet, I'm feeling my knees, I'm feeling my legs, I'm feeling my butt, I'm feeling everything that I am. I feel my hands, I'm talking with my hands while you and I are talking. I feel my head, I feel the sensation of the space I'm in, I feel the energies of the space, I feel my own field, I feel my breath. I feel I'm not breathing correctly because I'm talking. I feel how that feels in my stomach. I feel how my body responds to that. I'm communicating with my body while doing all of this sensing in, are you okay, body? And then my body says, no, I don't really like my legs being like that. And then I change the position because my body and I, we have created that very deep bond from where we connect and communicate energetically. Not that my body has what we call a very advanced, brilliant mind. It cannot do mathematical deductions, but it can give me physical reactions to I'm okay, I'm not okay. And my mind interprets it as a little voice because I have made that image around my body that it is like a little animal I need to take great care of. I'm not pushing it too far, not straining it, not crystallizing it by overtraining, which I know you have done with your muscle structures.
Right.
That renders it less sensitive. So these crystallizations must be decrystallized. They must be reconfigured into softness, into that whatever level of my body I have, I can put my hands on and then recalibrate into energetic softness that will eventually present itself as physical softness, physical flexibility, physical trust, that my body trusts that I take care of it, no matter what happens. Right?
Exactly. And that creates a safe space when you are, when you give yourself that trust, when you give yourself that allowance, which is something I've had to learn after my dance career. Now, when you give that, then you create a safe space, and it's hard enough to have a safe space in this time, right?
Yeah.
So
yes.
and so in that moment you are creating that space, and it really, just as you just said, it's starting with those very simple things of just feeling your feet on the ground, or just feeling your hands, or just feeling your breath.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. And once you have got that safe space, that level of self-nurture, where you go into that, for me, the way I work with my body, that's the first level of compassion.
Right.
Because if I can't have compassion with my own physicality, that is what we call a residual effect of the energies of a reality, which are completely out of sync. They are, as the Buddhist teachings call it, they're dukkha. They are out of order. They are in what we could call disorder. They are, we could say, modern science, entropy. They go into chaos. It completely declines all the time.
Implodes. Yeah.
It's not progressing. It's degressing. It's de-evolving. It's pushing it into the death process. It regresses into the death process and devastation cycles and non-existence. So it's pushed the wrong way. So what we need to do as physical beings is to first and foremost get our bodies out of entropy. Get our bodies out of this decline state. Yes, we will still poop and pee. That will be the daily clearing out of our body, but we need to assist our physicality in to recreate what we call a viability rate that goes with the organic vessel, that goes with the body feeling nurtured, taken care of, seen and heard, and feel that actually I'm here in a relationship with an energy system, with an energy being, not a soul, because I don't work with that concept, but with an energy being that can transfer itself from vessel to vessel. But the first progression couple that you are is with your own body. That's the one that will love you back, and you will love it like you love an animal. And the animal loves you back in that manner because it is all emotions, it's all electrochemical processes, it's all that we see in animals as well. And it has a type of intelligence, and it is able to respond to how you respond to it. So that's the important part of the physicality. And that's where you as a dancer need to learn new stuff, because you have pushed your body too hard. Your body is not really sure if it wants to trust you, because you have been driving it very hard for a very long time. Yes, it had the peaks where it felt the flushing of all of these endorphins and serotonin and all of these dopamine learning. Yeah, I can do these energies. But then afterwards, with the tiredness, and then wake up the day after and training and this pushing mind over matter, it's kind of said, yeah, I'm a little bit done here. So I'll crystallize close to the bones. I'm not really connected with the muscles to the same degree that I could be as you were when you were a kid. So it has kind of protected itself, and that has gone into crystallization. So that's one of the first steps to undo your hard training with that once you begin to practice the energy work, your body then needs to learn, hey, we're on a different page now. This is different. She actually wants me now. She actually wants to hear what I have to say now. And I'm here referring to you, that your body will feel, hey, she actually wants to listen to me now.
Yes, and getting past the self-sabotage, which is very prevalent. And of course, if you're working for such perfection, then it's very easy to fall into that. And I think very quickly, as soon as you start to work with the body, even in this reality, in the base program, as we all are, that is one of the first things that comes up, is the self-sabotage or the criticism. And no, and so I know, and it's I'm working on this.
Yes, I know you are. I know. I just want to use that as an example because because of your professional career, you have pushed it to the extremes. But everybody's overlooking on a grand scale on our planet. People are not listening to their bodies at all. They have got very little somatic contact. Soma is Greek and means body. It has the psychosomatic contact is faint or not there at all. People are saying, oh, I got a headache, I got this pain, I got that pain, or whatever, and they take pills and they some do training, because we are now learning, especially I come from Denmark, where it's the psychosomatic sciences are very evolved. We do know how we feel psychologically, how we feel our emotions, their electrochemical processes. Of course, it affects the physicality. How we think about things determines how the electrochemical processes of the body work, and that determines our health. So of course there's a connection point there. Everything is interconnected, mind, emotions, and body. It's not one or the other. It's not mind over matter. It's not about controlling our bodies. And I'm pushing it at extra level and say, as a psychotherapist, what I've seen in most of my clients, not all, but in most of my clients, the parental neglect has been then conditioned into the physicality, so that the personality structure then repeats the parental neglect and the parental criticism and the parental downsizing, if that's been the case. Sometimes parents are loving and caring, but they have their own ways of wanting reality to be, and that is mirrored to the child. That we could say is induced into the child like an osmosis effect. The kid picks up on the child picks up on all these subtle currents of emotions that parents have, and mold itself according to that image. And from there on, that becomes part of the personality structure. I'm not allowed to do this. I'm not allowed to do that, because if I express myself as I truly am, my parents won't really mirror back to me, I'm okay. So this is all about for the child to be mirrored back, I'm okay, I'm good enough, I am lovable. And if we as children do something that the parents don't understand or do not find lovable, they might not say it, but the energies will be shown. They will have a twitch, they will have a facial expression, they will have some mimic, they will turn their back or whatever. And kids are, all children are, including animals, that's the body itself. It reads body language. It reads the energies that are emitted towards it, like animals do. And that's where we can say, when we get in contact with our body again, animals are one of the greatest teachers for that, especially our pets, because they show us that we can do slight movements, and if they adapt to it right away, they don't need language to adapt to our behavior and our patterns and how we feel and what we are. They do it naturally, like children do. So that's the first part of our journey as well, on a daily basis. Yes.
Well, what's interesting is you've brought us back. We've started at the essence, and now we're back to the childhood. And I think this is so fascinating how you were paving this path here, because this is what I've also found. I recently was really directed towards going back to my childhood morphogenetic field. I was given, I think, from a future self of me. I'm not sure what that was, but given the information, go back there again and to work on the morphogenetic field and create that feeling of safeness, of comfort. And that has to do with the recognition, the acknowledgement, and that was the crux of the thing. Was all of us with our turmoil in our childhood is the confusion of the time, or the confusion of the electrochemical processes, however you want to say it, and just not being recognized in any sense or purpose. And just the fact of recognizing, yes, that was very confusing. That was very strange. And why were the parents, or why were the adults acting that way, or not even recognizing any of that? And then and so then to be able to work with the morphogenetic field, or as the somatic experiencing is, I think, is the same. I'm not quite so sure. That really can shift very quickly the whole energy. It's just, we need to do that often.
Yeah.
That's not just one day. That's a lot of work.
It needs to be a habit. It needs to be a habit to be so grounded in our bodies. And the Buddha actually worked with the same thing. Most of the teachings are all about the body as well. But then from that moment, once we have regained that ability, the Buddha learned it by the gurus, right? So he had it from there. And then he took it to the next step. And that was the compassion. And that's where I said the bridge between the body and our heart field is the compassion to the body, the progression coupled with our body, with ourselves, with who and what we are in this life, to undo the effects of childhood. And the Buddha didn't do that because he was not a psychotherapist, but he worked in a different way, just to put that in that box and say he worked with this differently from there. But when it comes to the recognition and reconnecting to the body in compassion, that's the best place to begin to activate our heart field. Because once the body feels safe and acknowledged, then it ripples into our parental patterns. Then that begins to ripple up the either trauma, or whether it's subtle or strong trauma from our childhood, because you can have had the most benevolent and caring parents ever, but if you come in being a different type of being than they are, and they, by not necessarily because they want to, but they have their ways and you have your ways, and if that somehow clashes and doesn't work perfectly, not all children and parents are similar in structure, then the child must adapt. And that can be felt as a type of trauma, as a kind of, I'm not allowed to be who I am, so I need to chip away pieces of me. I need to mold myself so I function in this tribe, which is natural for all biological beings to do so inside the base program. We adapt to the tribe we become part of. We call it cultural settings, so we won't be ostracized, so that we feel safe in the tribe, so we know that we can function within the tribe. I call that survival. Others will say that's perhaps a little bit too harsh a word, but biologically it is. Not that the child says, oh, I'm going to die if I don't have my parents, but there's this insecurity. I know I can't manage myself if I'm not part of this tribe. So it becomes a survival mechanism to chip away things, and later on it becomes a defense mechanism to keep up our personality structure, because we have not developed all the other levels of ourselves. We have become unauthentic. And that goes with the path of remembering, where we can say, well, we begin to go back to all the pieces we have chipped away in our childhood, just in this life. And we begin to clear the distortion around why we chipped it away. We begin to acknowledge that there were things that were not working perfectly, that things were out of order, they were out of harmony, they were dukkha, they were misplaced, that they was dysfunctional, and begin to integrate these dynamics again as part of the psychodynamics and heal them, and learn to understand where our parents did something that was malicious, and that would clear out as an energy. Why did they do that? And understand that was not because we were beings that deserved that, but probably because they were absorbed in some of their own issues they had not cleared out, and then projected it onto us. So we can decide whether or not we will let go of that anger we feel because of that, or we can transform that anger into kindness and say, well, I understand why they did it. I don't feel it's okay, but at least I understand it, and then I can let it go. And all of these psychodynamics that allows us to go in and heal and mend, which I call reparenting, or not that but it is called reparenting. reparent ourselves. We take back all of what we should have got from our parents. We clear all of that out and then turn it inwardly and say, that's the next level of my compassion work, is to build up a personality structure where I feel confident with who I am, where I feel in balance with who I am, where I recognize my flaws, where I see myself as I truly am, where I learn to give that kindness to myself, where I learn to be in that caring, nurturing, compassionate mode towards who I am as a person, as a psychological person, our psychosocial structure, with whatever that means. So we've done the body, now we go to the next level, the psychological level, where we do the same process, where we learn to listen to the energies of our social, psychosocial structure, our personality matrix, as I call it. The ones that, the reason why I call it the psychosocial or the social psychological structure is because that's the one we have as a being, where we interpret energies and sensations with our mind and our emotions, but we also use it in social context. So what we have become is something we project out into reality and in our interaction with other living beings, whether they are four-legged or two-legged or whatever type of living being we are interacting with. We are having an interaction field that comes from what we are and what they are. In that joint field, we have a meetup of different forms of energies. And these we can change in our psychological work, in our inner work. And that's where the lying down clear work position comes in, or sitting up, all depending on how we work best. But eventually, if we can go into theta state, we can then go from the childhood patterns, which we have worked with either with a psychotherapist or in our own clearing work, or we can walk around and do daily chores while we're doing psychological work, suddenly peeling the potatoes or whatever. Suddenly, oh, wow, I suddenly remember that, and then work with it as we train ourselves to be able to process these emotional patterns into a process of transformation and understanding. And as we understand, we let go of something, and others pieces of these chipped away patterns of what we used to be and what we were born with, we integrate and make part of us again and say, no, I want to have that ability. That's me. I like that. That's the strength. I like that one. I'll take that one and make it part of me. I'll integrate that one. I'll take that one back. Yes, I might be obnoxious when I do this, but I actually like that little cheeky part of me. I actually like. I know my mom didn't like it, but I actually like it. So I'll take that back and make it me and become proud of who we are. Not in pride, but as in honoring who we are, and feel that honor of, yes, I have taken back what I let go of. I've taken that back and made it part of me again. And that builds in another level of compassion into our heart field that begins us and set us on to the journey of going further back, as in when we play with the idea that we know we have existed before, then we go across the threshold, as it's said in our inner work, where that's where the theta state is needed, where we go beyond this life and go further back and go through the traumas there, which are also unpleasant, but and sometimes even more, because human history is violent and brutal and absolutely misery from A to Z. But if we go further back and there also do the process of, no, that's me, and I honor that part of me because I need that part of me. I want to be that. Even though in my Buddhist monk, I died a horrible death, but I remember everything else I was. I have more and more recall as before that event, as when I was in the monastery and what I was taught there. And that's amazing to get that reintegrated back into my physicality and my emotional field and my mental field. And for a short period of time, I am who I used to be there in the early 1900s. And I have to pull myself into this form again and integrate it and make it part of me, so I don't suddenly begin walking around talking a language that has no place in this reality. My mind is not geared for it, but still, so we don't get inflated by these chipped away pieces of us, but we actually integrate them and make a more wholesome personality structure where we really integrate all of our levels of existence. And these are the ones I call our capacities and our abilities, which allows me to remember what I was taught in the Buddhist monastery. So this is the interesting part of it. Not who I was, because that doesn't really matter, but what I was
But
taught.
what you were taught. Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
And if I can interject there, because the vibration of the authenticity, or the authenticity vibration is the same, and then you're going back and you're able to stand in that same vibration, and that's why you can then experience that past life, because you have reached that level of authenticity.
Yes.
And I think that is really fascinating. I think it makes it easier. It is because I think, past lives of all the horrible things that societies, and we know from history how you just look at the Middle Ages, how bad that was. So it's really hard to sometimes you don't want to go there because you have the fear. But when you're standing in your authenticity, and that has become more safe to you, or more, that has become what is comfortable, then it makes this expanded advanced psychology of having to face all of these horrendous things a lot easier to face. And it becomes, like you say, a habit.
Yeah.
If it becomes a habit to feel that authenticity, then it's easier.
Yes. And it's easier because the body already trusts you, so it doesn't put up the fear mechanism. It doesn't try to shut you down because it's afraid of its own devastation or succumb to the horrors of what is being presented. As you learn to make your psyche work with you as well, and you have the psyche gets trained to understand that its vibrational purpose is to regain and magnetically pull back everything that's been chipped away from this life and previous lifetimes, it naturally begins to seek for more things that can transform and reintegrate to become more whole. So the body trusts the process of, now we actually turn away from entropy and chaos and destruction and death, and begun the path back to life, back to who we truly are. And we have worked with our psyche, so that our psyche has now been trained to understand that the dynamics of it, vibrational, pull in, clean up, integrate to become more. The psyche itself says, I don't no longer need to be in defense mode, because the work I'm doing here actually leads me to be bigger, to be more inclusive, to be more caring, to be more loving, to be more understanding. And whoa, that feels good. That's the serotonin kick that really hits the big ding, 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 including the dopamine kick that goes in, which we know the frontal lobes run on, the dopamine that says, this is a learning process that really matters. This is really something that makes me feel good. Not that we are to seek the feeling good, or the samadhi, as it's called in Buddhist teachings, not that we're to seek that bliss feeling, but it gives that rush of these chemicals where our emotional field and our biofield begins to work together, and everything tingles and everything feels so fantastic, because we are getting aligned, we are being reunited, which is what the samadhi is. And once that merge has happened, then we can begin to push it into the sitting up contemplation work and the sitting up meditation work, where we can begin to ignite the higher levels of our mind field. So that's a lot of work that we need to go through to reach quote unquote enlightenment. So it's the path of reintegration, it's the path of remembering, it's the path of observance, and it's the path of literally going into what we could say, what is enlightenment, what is the true understanding of working with energy. For me, it is the ability to transform energy to reach our original capacities, from where we again can work with self, others, and reality for the deepest progression processes of consciousness potentials.
Beautiful. What can I say to that?
Not much more.
I think.
Yes.
Wow. Yeah.
So in a way, I have answered your question, not in a direct way, but going on a full, beautiful detour, as in, how are you to work with the energies of the day? There you go. One step at a time, in compassion and kindness to your own body, whether it's just today I'll just undo the crystallization of my muscular structure so it connects to the bones again, so it connects correctly to the what we call the skeleton, the heart level of your being, the molecular level. It's technically the bones are technically the closest we come to the mineral levels of the soil and the mineral levels of the planet that we are on. So that needs to be recalibrated again so it becomes flexible. Not that we get soft bones, but that the mineral levels in our bones will reconnect to the meridian system, the energy cords that are in our field, so it will emit the correct type of racial, or what we call the racial grids, as well as the holographic network of a reality field, density 1, where this is being absorbed through the feet, the middle point of our feet. There are actually vortices there that absorbs that energy, and via the bone structure, the mineral level begins to emit a specific vibration that allows the cells that are connected to the emotional field to begin to vibrate the perimeter, a different cellular structure that then works with the emotional field in loving kindness and compassion and vibration, which then goes into also the center of the DNA that allows us to work with the radiation level. And the radiation level is connected to the heavens and the other realms, whereas our emotional field are connected to what we call the racial grids and the original understanding of who and what we are. And the biofield is connected to the holographic network of our reality. And that's how we become the macrocosmos in microcosmos. Our body becomes a representation of the world that we are part of by working with all levels of what we are on a daily basis.
And that is through the dance.
Or the sitting up meditation, or the lying down clear work. But yes, I love to dance. That's for me.
As the last.
Yes, I began in sitting up meditation, but I used creative imagination, which Carl Gustav Jung is teaching creative imagination. Work with the images, go in and work with them, change them, alter them. I have some of these exercises in my books. And then I went into the still point meditation where I learned to focus. And then later on, I felt the need to lie down and clear. And I fell asleep, of course, to begin with. But as I learned the more and more of the lying down, I actually worked with my chakra system, lying down, clearing out my chakra system because I had one. And cleared that one out until I could nullify it. And then I began working with more deeper levels of meditation. So it's been back and forth. But right now, most of the work I do is in dance on a daily basis. That's where I do most of my clearing work, because there I can combine all levels of my fields, my body, my emotional field, and my mental field in one go when I dance and when I work with the spatial energies in and around myself. So that's a different level today.
And it is beautiful because you really went from the baby steps. Baby steps up to the dance, all those different levels, integrating all those, and of course that's the creme de la creme at the end. But this has been phenomenal. It's been really a learning experience for me, that's for sure.
No, and it's been beautiful. It's been beautiful to connect it to the energy of dance, because you already had it in you. Had that. One of the things that I really appreciate about your energy system is that you have had that professionality. You have really mastered the energies of your body, which makes it, even though your body is a little bit discontented, disgruntled with you, at least it's trained, it's disciplined. And that makes it so much easier to go to the next level, because it's already, once you connect and you get that nurturing kindness back into it, so your body feels more relaxed and more calm, and you work with it to heal it, then you will have an enormous strength in your psychological work, because you have that discipline.
To fall back on. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's part of your backbone, literally.
It's part of the backbone. Yeah. I know that those capacities do work, and the creational as well. So, and I think creational is also part of the psychological work as well. I mean, being creative about how to face the different aspects of the things that come up. No, well, Randi, I really appreciate this. I guess we're getting to the time where we've said everything, and I think anyone who's listening to this that doesn't know about your work, you can see how encompassing, and this is a work beyond any work that I've ever experienced, and I think that is really out there. That's why I say you are a seer of our times, and you are a teacher of our times. We'll be putting, of course, the websites are going to be listed down here, and my website, which has a lot of references to your work on the website as well. And so I invite anyone who is interested to dive in.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. Thank you. It's been an utter pleasure talking to you to get to that level. It's been a very profound exploration journey for me as well, going to that level and finding an energy field that actually were fueling it. So this is interesting as well, where the dynamics between people that are talking together and sharing the original level of information, how we can optimize each other to remember more. So that has been a very beautiful experience as well. Thank you for that. I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Okay, thank you.
Very nice. All right. Well, take care and